Good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are watching Bible study from Victory Fellowship Church, where I'm the pastor. My name is David Russell, and I will be with you in the book of 2 Samuel this morning. 2 Samuel, and we'll be starting with chapter 18. We may review a little bit of chapter 17, and hopefully you're watching on YouTube because that's where we are live, and hopefully soon we will be on Victory Fellowship Church's Facebook page, but right now we can only stream to one or the other page because of our Facebook streaming policies. So we are choosing to stream to YouTube. Grab your Bible, if you will. Turn to 2 Samuel, and we're going to start with chapter 18. Good morning, Candy. Don't forget to get us on Facebook. And I just want to say this about the 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel. Those are chapters mostly about David. And David, you may recall, is a man that God said, he is a man after my own heart. So there was a special quality about David that we can learn from. And what I see when I see what David says and what David does is I see he's humble. He was king. He was anointed to be king. He went many years of being patient, waiting on God to actually transition into the kingdom after he had been anointed to be king. He didn't take it by force. So many people in the world today seems to advocate, you go, you grab, you get, you take. And in some ways, the kingdom of God does require us to move and to do things. It requires action. Faith requires action. But his dependence on God certainly is outstanding. And he was willing to be self-critical when Nathan the prophet came to him and said, you were with Bathsheba, you took that man's wife. He said, I've sinned. He said it right away. And in the last chapter, last time we were studying in 2 Samuel, chapter 17, what had happened is sort of a result of that sin with Bathsheba. When he was confronted by Nathan the prophet, right away God said, you're forgiven. But he said, because you've lain with someone else's wife, your companion will lay with your wives in full public view. And that happened when Absalom, David's son, his own son, came and started a rebellion against his father. He wanted that kingdom. He was going to win the hearts of the people over. In fact, he had done that quite a bit. He stood outside the gate and pretended to be on their side in legal matters. And there are people like that today. Flattery. They will flatter you to gain an advantage. They want your vote, so to speak, and they'll do whatever they can do to get it. Well, David got the news that Absalom, his son, was taking the place over, and instead of staying and fighting, he took off, he left the castle. And he was very despondent, and his head hung down, and many of the people wept that were with him. And they were some of the people that watched them leave were throwing stones at them and just kind of criticizing them. And I remember that in the last chapter, David had an advisor, Ahithophel, and his advice was like from God himself. And he heard that Ahithophel stayed with his son and was going to advise his son. And even without looking up, almost, he said, oh God, confound the wisdom of Ahithophel. And you know what? God heard that prayer of desperation, and rejection and dejection. He answered that prayer, and Ahithophel said, go get your dad. Go get him right now while he is despondent, while he is depressed. Don't wait, because he'll gain strength. And David was known for in difficult times, drawing on the Lord, going to God and being strengthened in God. So Absalom, the rebellious person trying to take the kingdom, said, well, what does everyone else think? And David had some friends there, and they said, don't do it. Wait. And they confounded the wisdom of Ahithophel. And for the first time in a long time, Ahithophel's advice did not get taken, which probably resulted in David's life being spared. So that's what happened in chapter 17. Now we're moving to chapter 18, our new chapter for this week. And this now is David out in the wooded area, away from the castle, and a bunch of people started to join him and fight with him. And it says here in 2 Samuel 18:1, David numbered the people who were with him, and he set captains of thousands and captains of hundreds over them. So even though he was not the official, well, he was the official king, but even though he was not at the castle, apparently there were thousands of people that met up with him, and he had to organize them into a fighting group. And David sent out 1/3 of the people under the hand of Joab, 1/3 under the hand of Abishai, Joab's brother, and 1/3 under the hand of Ittai the Gittite. And the king said to the people, I also will surely go out with you myself. David was willing to go out and fight, but the people answered and said, you shall not go out. For if we flee away, they will not care about us, nor if half of us die. Will they care about us? But you are worth 10,000 of us, for you are more help to us in the city. So the king said, whatever seems best to you, I'll do. So the king stood beside the gate, and all the people went out by hundreds and thousands. Now the king had commanded Joab, Abishai, and Ittai, saying, deal gently for my sake with the young man Absalom. And all the people heard when the king gave all the captains orders concerning Absalom. He was still David's son, and he didn't want anything bad to happen to him, even though his son was a rebellious leader. So the people went out into the field of battle against Israel, and the battle was in the woods of Ephraim. The people of Israel were overthrown there before the servants of David, and a great slaughter of 20,000 took place there that day. For the battle there was scattered over the face of the whole countryside, and the woods devoured more people that day than the sword devoured. It was a rough terrain. Then Absalom met the servants of David. Absalom rode on a mule. The mule went under the thick boughs of a great terebinth tree, and his head caught in the terebinth, so that he was left hanging between heaven and earth. And the mule which was under him went on. Can you imagine that? You're in a battle and you're wanting to, move quickly, and you're in this wooded area that you're not familiar with, and all of a sudden your head gets caught in a tree and your mule keeps moving, so you're dangling there. Now a certain man saw it and told Joab and said, I just saw Absalom hanging in a terebinth tree. So Joab said to the man who told him, you just saw him? Why did you not strike him there to the ground? I would have given you 10 shekels of silver and a belt. But the man said to Joab, though I were to receive 1,000 shekels of silver in my hand, I would not raise my hand against the king's son. For in our hearing the king commanded you, and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Beware, lest anyone touch the young man, pardon me, Absalom. Otherwise, I would have dealt falsely against my own life, for there's nothing hidden from the king, and you yourself would have set yourself against me. And Joab said, I can't linger with you. He took 3 spears in his hand and thrust them through Absalom's heart while he was still alive in the midst of the terebinth tree. And 10 young men who bore Joab's armor surrounded Absalom and struck and killed him. So Joab blew the trumpet, and the people returned from pursuing Israel, for Joab held back the people. And they took Absalom and cast him into a large pit in the woods, and laid a large heap of stones over him. Then all Israel fled, everyone to his tent. Now Absalom in his lifetime had taken and set up a pillar for himself, which is in the king's valley, for he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. He called the pillar after his own name, and to this day it's called Absalom's Monument. Then Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said, Let me run now and take news to the king, how the Lord has avenged him of his enemies. And Joab said to him, You shall not take the news this day. You can take the news another day, but today you shall take no news, because the king's son is dead. Then Joab said to the Cushite, Go tell the king what you've seen. So the Cushite bowed himself to Joab and ran. And Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said again to Joab, But whatever happens, please let me also run after the Cushite. So Joab said, Why will you run, my son, since you have no news ready? But whatever happens, he says, let me run. So he said, Run. Then Ahimaaz ran by way of the plain and outran the Cushite. Now David was sitting between the 2 gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate. To the wall he lifted his eyes, and he looked, and there was a man running alone. Then the watchman cried out and told the king, and the king said, If he is alone, there is news in his mouth. And he came rapidly and drew near. The watchman saw another man running. And the watchman called to the gatekeeper and said, There is another man running alone. And the king said, He also brings good news. So the watchman said, I think the running of the first is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok. And the king said, He is a good man and comes with good news. So Ahimaaz called out and said to the king, All is well. Then he bowed down with his face to the earth before the king and said, Blessed be the Lord, your God, who has delivered you the men who raised their hand against my lord the king. And the king said, Is the young man Absalom safe? Ahimaaz answered, When Joab sent the king's servant and me your servant, I saw a great tumult, but I did not know what it was about. He lied. And the king said, Turn aside and stand there. So he turned aside and stood still. Just then the Cushite came, and the Cushite said, There is good news, my lord the king, for the Lord has avenged you this day of all those who rose against you. And the king said to the Cushite, Is the young man Absalom safe? So the Cushite answered, May the enemies of my lord the king and all who rise against you to do harm be like that young man. Then the king was deeply moved and went up to the chamber over the gate and wept. And as he went, he said thus, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died in your place. O Absalom, my son. He was very soulishly, of course, attached to his son. 2 Samuel chapter 19. And Joab was told, Behold, the king is weeping and mourning for Absalom. So the victory that day was turned into mourning for all the people. For the people heard it was said that day, the king is grieved for his son. And the people stole back into the city that day as people who were ashamed steal away when they flee in battle. But the king covered his face, and the king cried out with a loud voice, "O my son Absalom, O Absalom, my son, my son." Then Joab came into the house of the king and said, "Today you've disgraced all your servants who today have saved your life. The lives of your sons and daughters, the lives of your wives, and the lives of your concubines, in that you love your enemies and hate your friends. For you've declared today that you regard neither princes nor servants. For today I perceive that if Absalom had lived, and all of us had died today, then it would have pleased you well. Now therefore, arise, go out and speak comfort to your servants. For I swear by the Lord, if you do not go out, no one will stay with you this night, and it'll be worse for you than all the evil that has befallen you from your youth till now." His general, Joab, gave him some good advice. He said, "Look, the people are coming back like they lost. And it should be a victory because they won against the rebellion." But his general was telling the king, "You got to be on their side. Quit mourning the loss of your son." So the king arose and sat in the gate, and they told all the people, saying, "The king is sitting in the gate." So they came before the king, for every one of Israel had fled to his tent. Now all the people were in a dispute throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, "The king saved us from the hand of our enemies. He delivered us from the hand of the Philistines, and now he has fled from the land because of Absalom. But Absalom, who we anointed over us, has died in battle. Now therefore, why do you say nothing about bringing back the king?" So King David sent to Zadok and Abiathar the priest, saying, "Speak to the elders of Judah, saying, why are you the last to bring back the king to his house? You are my brethren, you are my bone, my flesh. Why then are you the last to bring back the king? And say to Amasa, are you not my bone and my flesh? God, do so to me and more, if you are not commander of the army before me continually in the place of Joab." So he swayed the hearts of all the men of Judah, just as the heart of one man, so that they sent this word to the king, "Return you and all your servants." Then the king returned and came to the Jordan, and Judah came to Gilgal to go meet the king and to escort the king across the Jordan. So see, they had won against the rebellion. It was time for the king to go back to the kingdom city. All right, and Shimei, the son of Gera, a Benjamite, who was from Bahuriim, hurried and came down with the men of Judah to meet King David. There were 1,000 men of Benjamin with him, and Ziba, the servant of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons and 20 servants with him, they went over the Jordan before the king. Then a ferry boat went across to carry over the king's household, and to do what he thought good. Now Shimei, the son of Gera, fell down before the king when he had crossed the Jordan. And he said to the king, "Do not let my lord impute iniquity to me, or remember what wrong your servant did on the day that my lord the king left." I shook my phone a little bit. So this is the guy that was cursing David as he was leaving. And now that David won, he's going out there to meet the king and try to smooth things over. "For I, your servant, know that I have sinned. Therefore I am the first to come today of all the house of Joseph to go down to meet my lord the king." But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, answered and said, "Shall not Shimei be put to death because he cursed the Lord's anointed?" And David said, "What do I have to do with you, sons of Zeruiah? You should be adversaries to me today. Shall any man be put to death today in Israel? For I do not know what today I am king. Or do I not know today that I am king over Israel?" Therefore the king said to Shimei, "You shall not die." And the king swore to him. Now Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, came down to meet the king, and he had not cared for his feet, nor trimmed his mustache, nor washed his clothes from the day the king departed until the day he returned. So it was when he came to Jerusalem to meet the king said, "Why did you not go with me, Mephibosheth?" And he answered, "My lord, O king, my servant deceived me. For your servant said, I will saddle a donkey for myself, that I may ride on it and go to the king, because your servant is lame. And he has slandered your servant to my lord the king. But my lord the king is like an angel of God, therefore do what is good in your eyes. For all my father's house were but dead men before my lord the king. Yet you set your servant among those who eat at your own table." This was the son of Saul, you see. And David's love for Saul's son, what was his name? Oh, it escapes me right now. Jonathan. But his love for Jonathan caused him to make a declaration that when he became a king, he would always treat Jonathan's family gently. And that's why he was allowing Mephibosheth to eat at the king's table. So let's see. So the king said to him, "Why do you speak any more of your matters? I have said, you and Ziba divide the land." Then Mephibosheth said to the king, "Rather let him take it all, for inasmuch as my lord the king has come back in peace to his own house." And Barzillai the Gileadite came down from Rogelazim and went across the Jordan with the king to escort him across the Jordan. Now Barzillai was a very aged man, 80 years old, and when he had provided the king with supplies, he stayed at Mahanaim, for he was very rich. And the king said to him, "Come across with me, and I'll provide for you while you're with me in Jerusalem." But he said to the king, "How long do I have to live that I should go up with the king to Jerusalem? I'm today 80 years old. Can I discern between good and bad? Can your servant taste what I eat or what I drink? Can I hear any longer the voice of singing men and singing women? Why then should your servant be a further burden to my lord the king? Your servant will go a little way across the Jordan with the king. And why should the king repay me with such a reward? Please let your servant turn back again, that I may die in my own city, near the grave of my father and mother. But here is your servant Shimeam. Let him cross over with my lord the king, and do for him what seems good to you." And the king answered Shimon and said, "Cross over with me, and I'll do for him what seems good to you. Now whether you request of me, I will do for you." Then all the people went down over the Jordan, and the king crossed over. And the king kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and he returned to his own place. Now the king went to Gilgal, and Shimei went with him, and all the people of Judah escorted the king, and also half the people of Israel. Just then all the men of Israel came to the king and said, "Why have my brethren, the men of Judah, stolen you away and brought the king, his household, and all David's men with him across the Jordan?" So all the men of Jordan answered them, "Because the king is a close relative of ours. Why then are you angry over this matter? Have we ever eaten at the king's expense, or has he given us any gift?" And the men of Israel answered the men of Judah and said, "We have 10 shares in the king. Therefore, we also have more right to David than you. And the men of Israel answered them, why do you despise us? We are not the first to advise bringing back our king. Yet the words of the men of Judah were fiercer than the words of the men of Israel. All right. So that was chapter 19. That brings us to chapter 20 for next week. And enjoyed having you visit with us. Hey, things are happening here at Victory Fellowship Church. It's not your regular church. It's exciting. Move of the Holy Spirit. God is speaking to us about these days and what's going on in the world. Be a part of it. Come at 11 a.m. 11 a.m. Victory Fellowship Church. And we'll be happy to meet with you then. God bless you. We'll see you next week.